Imagine waking up to morning headlines that NASA, the legendary spearhead of American innovation, the agency that sent humankind to the moon and changed the way we see the universe, is facing its darkest hour in over half a century. The fate of Mars missions, revolutionary telescopes, and even NASA's very workforce now hangs by a thread. The world watches as the symbol of American ambition and technological prowess approaches a cliff edge. How did we reach this extraordinary brink? And more importantly, what could this moment mean for the future of space exploration, not just for the United States, but for all of humanity? Let's take a step back. For more than 6 decades, NASA has stood as a beacon of possibility. It is not just a government agency. It is a global icon, synonymous with the spirit of adventure and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. From the Apollo astronauts planting the American flag on the lunar surface in the late 1960s, to the awe-inspiring images returned by the Hubble Space Telescope, to the modern-day triumphs of Mars rovers like Perseverance, NASA's story is inseparable from the story of scientific progress. These achievements are not just about rockets and robots. They are the result of generations of scientists, engineers, visionaries, and problem solvers, united by the belief that there are no limits to human potential. Yet history teaches us that NASA has never been immune to political, economic, or social turbulence. Since its founding in the late 1950s, the agency has weathered cycles of expansion and contraction. Budgets have waxed and waned, and at times, ambitious programs have been shelved overnight. After the Apollo program concluded in the early 1970s, NASA's funding dropped sharply, forcing the agency to adapt, innovate, and find new ways forward. The Challenger and Columbia shuttle tragedies of the 1980s and 2000s tested NASA's morale, engineering, and resolve. Through every crisis, NASA regrouped, reinvented itself, and soared again. But today, experts warn, a perfect storm is brewing, one that threatens to be even more destabilizing than the challenges of the past. Here's what's unfolding right now. The latest presidential budget request for fiscal year 2026 proposes a staggeringly deep cut, nearly 1/4 of NASA's operating budget. That could mean erasing more than $6 billion in annual funding. To put that in perspective, this is the largest proposed reduction in NASA's budget since the end of the Apollo era. And it arrives at a moment of global competition and technological acceleration. But the crisis does not stop at the bottom line. The White House's Workforce Optimization Initiative is targeting cuts of up to half of NASA's staff through a combination of early retirements, voluntary buyouts, and possible layoffs. The plan could see as many as 15,000 to 20,000 employees leave in the next 2 years. Imagine the collective knowledge, expertise, and passion that could be lost almost overnight. Men and women who have dedicated their careers to unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos may be forced to walk away from their life's work. Casey Dreyer of the Planetary Society describes these cuts as nothing less than an extinction-level event for American space science. He warns that the consequences will be felt not only in lost missions, but in the evaporation of institutional memory, technological capability, and public trust. Over 40 planned and ongoing missions, among them New Horizons, which gave us our first close-up look at Pluto, Juno, which is rewriting our understanding of Jupiter, and the iconic Chandra X-ray Observatory, are at risk of being defunded or canceled entirely. Entire offices within NASA, such as the Office of the Chief Scientist, the Office of Technology, Policy, and Strategy, and the Branch for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility, are slated for closure. These are not just bureaucratic footnotes. They represent the nerve centers of NASA's scientific vision, technological strategy, and commitment to a diverse workforce. Lori Garver, former NASA Deputy Administrator, has called the move short-sighted, warning that slashing the agency's budget and workforce could cripple innovation for years, if not decades. She points out that NASA's strength has always been its ability to rally the best minds and marshal resources for world-changing goals, from moon landings to Mars rovers to Earth science missions that help us understand our own planet's climate. By gutting the agency, Garver argues, the United States risks losing its edge in the global race for technological leadership. This isn't merely an internal shakeup. The proposed changes come at a time when competition is heating up on the world stage. China is pouring unprecedented resources into its own space program, with a clear ambition to leap ahead in planetary exploration, lunar outposts, and satellite technology. In the past 5 years, Chinese missions have landed on the moon's far side, brought lunar samples back to Earth, and deployed their own Mars rover, Zhurong. With NASA scaling back, Beijing could seize the moment to define the next chapter of space exploration. Meanwhile, international collaborations, once the backbone of American leadership in space, are now in jeopardy. Partners in Europe, Japan, Canada, and elsewhere are left wondering if they can rely on NASA as the anchor for joint missions. The emotional toll on NASA's workforce is impossible to ignore. Imagine being one of the agency's brilliant scientists or engineers, facing the prospect of layoffs, project cancellations, and the knowledge that decades of expertise may simply vanish into thin air. One former employee described losing a dream job at NASA as brutal chaos, recalling the heartbreak of seeing colleagues and friends scattered, teams broken up, and a sense of purpose slipping away. The fear is not just for individual careers, but for the loss of institutional memory, those hard-won lessons from past triumphs and failures that can never be replaced by policy documents or training manuals. When you cut deep into the roots, warns Robert Smith from the University of Alberta, sometimes the tree never grows back. But beyond the headlines and statistics, one urgent question stands out. As NASA faces its most dramatic downsizing ever, can the agency adapt fast enough to survive the storm? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end for American space leadership? Hang on, because the next chapter will reveal what's really at stake and whether NASA's best days are truly behind it or still lie ahead. NASA now stands at a crossroads unlike anything in its storied history. What happens next could redefine not only the agency, but the entire global space race. So, how might NASA respond to these existential challenges? And could a comeback be possible? Let's start with the possibilities. Some experts believe the cuts could force NASA to innovate in ways it never has before. Faced with the most severe constraints in decades, the agency may be compelled to streamline operations, eliminate bureaucratic overhead, and focus its resources on the most ambitious and promising projects. The White House's push for public-private partnerships could open new doors, allowing NASA to leverage the agility and creativity of commercial space companies. Already, NASA's collaboration with SpaceX and Blue Origin has transformed launch operations, reduced costs, and accelerated the pace of technological breakthroughs. The Commercial Crew and Commercial Resupply programs have proven that private industry can deliver astronauts and cargo to the International Space Station, freeing up NASA to pursue deeper space exploration. But there are real risks, and they are immense. A 24% budget reduction, as projected for the next fiscal year, could mean more than 40 missions terminated or left unfunded. Consider the ripple effects. That's 40 opportunities to unlock new scientific discoveries, from probing the atmospheres of distant exoplanets to studying the origins of the solar system, lost to austerity. The closure of key offices, such as the Office of the Chief Scientist and the Office of Technology, Policy, and Strategy, could cause a brain drain as top talent seeks opportunities elsewhere. The loss of the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility threatens NASA's hard-won progress in building a workforce that reflects the richness of American society. The pain will not be confined to NASA's civil servants. Contractors, external researchers, and academic collaborators who depend on NASA funding are facing equally uncertain futures. The impacts will ripple through universities, research institutes, and the broader innovation ecosystem. A generation of students and early career scientists may be discouraged from pursuing careers in space science, just as the stakes for global competition are rising. On the international stage, competitors are watching closely. China's meteoric rise in space exploration is no secret. With NASA scaling back, Beijing could seize the moment to lead lunar exploration, Mars missions, and the next generation of satellite technology. If the United States steps back, the world map of space power could be redrawn in just a few short years. Europe, India, and Russia are also accelerating their own programs, seeking to fill any gap left by an American retreat. Yet, history suggests NASA has a stubborn resilience. The agency has weathered cycles of boom and bust before, from the post-Apollo budget slashes in the 1970s to the shuttle tragedies of the 1980s and 2000s. Each time, NASA found a way to reinvent itself. The agency responded to Apollo's end by developing the Space Shuttle, an ambitious program that enabled new kinds of science and international cooperation. After the Challenger and Columbia disasters, NASA rebuilt its safety culture, reimagined its missions, and helped create the International Space Station, a symbol of peaceful global collaboration. Lori Garver, former NASA Deputy Administrator, puts it bluntly. Short-sighted cuts never define us in the long run. It's how we respond, the determination to keep reaching, that builds the future. She underscores that NASA's greatest strength has always been its people, their creativity, grit, and refusal to accept limits. So what does all this mean for you? For anyone fascinated by the future of technology, economics, and the human drive to explore. First, NASA's crisis is a front-row lesson in the power and vulnerability of innovation. Even the world's most iconic agency is not immune to political winds or economic storms. But it's also a call to action. Innovation thrives not despite adversity, but because of it. This is a pattern seen across industries. When constraints appear, creative solutions often follow. Whether you work in tech, business, or education, the NASA story is a reminder to embrace uncertainty and seek out new partnerships. Secondly, the fate of NASA is a signal to all nations. Global leadership in high technology is never permanent. Today's headlines can trigger tomorrow's tectonic shifts. For students, entrepreneurs, and policymakers, this is the moment to ask, how do we build resilient systems, invest in talent, and ensure that setbacks become springboards? Let's examine the possible futures that could emerge from this crisis. One scenario is that NASA, forced to shrink, becomes leaner, more agile, and more innovative, focusing on a handful of truly transformative missions and forging unprecedented alliances with industry and international partners. For example, NASA could double down on its Artemis program, aiming to return humans to the moon alongside commercial and foreign collaborators. By ceding some responsibilities to private companies, satellite launches, low Earth orbit operations, and even lunar cargo delivery, NASA could conserve its resources for pioneering science and deep space exploration. Another scenario is less optimistic. The United States cedes ground to rivals like China, Europe, and India, losing its leadership role in planetary science, human spaceflight, and the development of critical technologies. In this future, the brain drain accelerates as top scientists and engineers seek opportunities elsewhere. The United States' prestige as a destination for global talent could erode, and the innovation ecosystem that once flourished around NASA may wither. International collaborations could shift toward countries willing to invest, leaving NASA isolated. There is also the risk of long-term damage to the U.S. space program, with a decline in scientific output, a loss of talent, and a diminished role in international collaborations. If over 40 missions are canceled or left unfunded, the world may never learn the answers to some of the most profound questions about our solar system, the origins of life, or the fate of our own planet. The termination of offices focused on diversity and inclusion could make it harder to attract the next generation of explorers from all backgrounds, undermining the very culture of innovation that made NASA great. Yet, even in the face of these stark challenges, there are glimmers of hope. NASA's people are renowned for their adaptability, creativity, and cosmic ambition. As one former employee put it, "You may leave NASA, but NASA never leaves you." Many who depart the agency go on to shape the future from universities, startups, and research labs around the world. They carry with them the culture of curiosity, collaboration, and excellence that is NASA's true legacy. NASA's leadership, too, is determined to chart a path forward. Acting Administrator Janet Petro has affirmed the agency's commitment to complying with the White House's directive to downsize the federal workforce, while ensuring that NASA remains efficient and effective. The Science Mission Directorate, led by Nicola Fox, is working to prioritize the highest impact missions and safeguard the agency's scientific vision. The Space Environments Testing Management Office is developing a strategic plan to optimize testing capabilities, focusing on 4 key goals: providing essential services, increasing efficiency, aligning and optimizing resources, and coordinating future plans. Looking to the future, NASA may deepen its reliance on public-private partnerships. The success of collaborations with companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin demonstrates the potential for new business models in space exploration. As commercial actors take over routine operations, NASA can focus on the next frontiers: robotic missions to the outer planets, telescopes that probe the origins of the universe, and preparations for the first human voyages to Mars. Internationally, the agency could seek to strengthen partnerships with space agencies in Europe, Japan, Canada, and beyond. By sharing expertise, resources, and risks, NASA and its partners could achieve more together than any could alone. In a world where geopolitical competition is intensifying, space could become a realm of renewed collaboration and diplomacy, or of rivalry and fragmentation. For young people watching these developments, the message is clear. The future of exploration and science is uncertain, But the need for bold, creative minds has never been greater. Whether at NASA, in private industry, or in academic research, the call to explore, discover, and imagine remains vital. The next generation will decide whether the United States remains a leader in space or whether that mantle passes to others. So, can NASA survive this crisis and maybe even rebound stronger? History says yes, but only if it adapts, embraces new partnerships, and never loses sight of its core mission: to explore, to discover, to inspire. The story of NASA is, above all, a story of resilience and hope, a testament to what human beings can achieve when they dare to dream, even in the darkest times. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of game-changing shifts in science, technology, and the global economy, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth stories and expert analysis. And let us know in the comments, what do you think NASA's next move should be?